Well, good Monday morning to you, and welcome to our live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Drs. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition.
Yes,
on
ma'am. Sure.
Courthouse Road, on Cowan Road in Gulfport. I'm trying to move y'all again. On Cowan Road in
I know,
Gulfport,
that's
south of
been
Pass
8
Road.
years, too. We have not been on Courthouse Road in 8 years.
I know, but you were there.
We were.
But you were
Yeah,
there.
long
That's how I
time
remember.
ago.
You had a
Right.
little bitty place right across the post office.
Post office, right.
Right, a little corner building right
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So, but things got so busy they had to move and expand.
That's
There you
right.
go.
So now they're located on Cowan Road. Matter of fact, it's across the street on Cowan Road from the old Kmart Garden Center. They will be open at 10 today. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 11 to 2 on Saturdays. Drs. Jim and Janine are there Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and Dr. Mays is there on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Right.
Correct.
You got it.
Got all that in one
Got all
breath.
that in
How
one
about
time,
that?
huh?
You
Hey,
got it.
in
We
spite
didn't
that
have
I've
it
got
written
this head
down.
cold going on
Yeah.
right now. So I'll be able to see y'all in just a little bit here after the show's over this morning. We started out something last week, and we really didn't get to cover everything that we wanted to, but February is Heart Month.
Right.
So again, I had to pull the red back out.
Yeah, that's right.
I did wash it.
Okay.
Have it cleaned before.
He smells pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And but we're going to continue our conversation about Heart Month and how important it is to, of course, have a healthy heart, kind of a major item in your body.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it is.
896-0713, 800-349-0713. We are live, and we're here for you and your health. So call and talk to us live, or you can give your question to our producer, and he will pass it along to us. So first of all, one of the things you wanted to cover was something a gentleman asked a question about last week.
Right.
Brought up something, and
You weren't familiar with it, so
No.
we
Yeah,
looked
I
it
mean,
up.
this was because he asked, are you familiar with this? No, but I've looked into it. It was what they call the molecule N106, and that's what it is. It's just a little molecule or a little chain of amino acids and so on that kind of acts like a enzyme, if you will, that turns on something in the calcium channel. Now, a lot of people out there have heard about calcium channel blockers for blood pressure and so on. Well, if you block too much of that calcium channel, the heart doesn't pump as well because it takes calcium to contract the muscle. Magnesium relaxes it, calcium contracts it. So if you get your calcium channels to where they don't work, your heart can't pump, and therefore they call it heart failure or congestive heart failure. And this molecule 106, now they're looking at it as a drug, obviously, because they found remnants of it, and it is something they've identified, things like earthworms, things like that. But needless to say, it looks very promising. Someday, I'm sure they will have a pill of N106.
And it is for just
yeah,
congestive
congestive
heart
heart
failure.
failure.
It's not for all heart problems. It is
No.
just for congestive
I was going to
heart
say,
failure. We're looking into it.
earthworm would be a great place to study that, because don't they have like 7 hearts?
I'm not
I'm
real
not sure
familiar
about that,
with
but I
earthworms.
do know
Sounds good.
We do have a compound called Beluki that actually comes from earthworms. It's an enzyme from earthworms, and it is definitely great at keeping you from clotting.
Well, I know that cows have more than one stomach.
Yeah, well, they have 4.
4 stomachs, but I'm pretty sure earthworms have like 7 hearts. That's why
The
when you
Hebrew
break
cows
them in half,
before he had
they could very well, the thing about the earthworm and that Beluki that she talks about, the earthworms, we know, they digest, put them in the ground, they chew up everything. And one of the ways they do that is that enzyme.
Right.
And of course, they can extract that enzyme, we take it, and it actually can digest things in our body like the substrate that holds the plaque together, things like that. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully the gentleman that called with that question last week found out, got an answer to his question.
Yeah, and if we don't know anything, if somebody calls with a question, we will look it up for you.
And that's a great thing.
Yep.
I mean, again, we were talking about your heart health today and how to keep a healthy heart.
Right.
And again, we didn't get to everything we wanted to talk to you
One thing
about.
we were talking about is risk factors and how to know your risk factors. And
Right.
we did talk about the NMR, which is your particles. So we talked about that last week. Another big one is homocysteine.
Yeah, really.
And a lot of people have never had their homocysteine checked. Homocysteine is a compound that your body produces.
Yeah, if you're alive, you're producing
Yeah, you're producing homocysteine. And again, like cholesterol, it is actually probably more dangerous than cholesterol.
Oh, it's much more.
Much more dangerous. It actually damages your vessels. It can cause blockages. It can cause a lot of problems. And a lot of people haven't had it checked. And it's simple to lower it if you know it's elevated. But right now, the only thing that's been proven to lower it is vitamins. It's actually, methylated B12, methylated folic acid, betaine, B6, Even our formula that we use has a little bit of B2. So it's a B vitamin combination, but it's in pretty high doses of the methylated folate, which is one of the more important things to lower it.
Yeah, and I think, we had that whole show that one time on
methylation.
Well, that's kind of where it goes back to this thing with homocysteine, because people that have those issues, those genetic issues, that's one of the problems that they'll run into is their homocysteine goes really high. And it's been implicated in heart disease as well as
dementia and Alzheimer's. And we've seen people over the years that have come in and they're having repetitive blockages, repetitive, and their cholesterol is low as it can go. I mean, they've got their cholesterol down to nothing with medication, and they're still getting blockages. And on these people, we always check a homocysteine, and many times in those instances where they keep having occurring problems, then it is high homocysteine. And so it's something that, and it is a medical thing. I mean, it's not that we've made it up, but and there's whole books written on.
We didn't invent that one.
There's whole books written on homocysteine. There's one that we like that's called Beyond Cholesterol. Don't just look at your cholesterol. You really need to look at your homocysteine. So homocysteine is a very important factor to know, especially when you have stuff that runs in families, because homocysteine does tend to run in families.
Because of that genetic mutation.
Because of a genetic mutation that tends to make you have a higher homocysteine.
Carlos from Van Cleve is on the phone with us. Good morning, Carlos. I know you had a question for the doctors about skin. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
What can we do for you, Carlos?
I was wondering, I go outside in the sun and I break out in rashes and it itches me a lot. I want to know what can I do for that.
The most common reason that we see a lot of people, now, everybody's a little different, you'd have to see it, but a lot of people have a candida or a fungus.
Fungus.
And moist heat brings it out. So when you get outside and you get hot and moist, it'll actually bring it out through the skin, and it's very itchy. And the things that we tend to use is definitely the probiotics. We have something called AF Essentials that stands for Antifungal Essentials, and actually the diet change. Yeah. Because if you have candida and you're eating sugar, it's just feeding it, and you're probably never going to get rid of it. So there's definitely things you can do. There are some other rare conditions where people are allergic to the sun.
Right.
Which, I'm not sure which one you have without looking at it and getting your history. If you are diabetic, are you diabetic?
Carlos?
Carlos?
Hello?
Well, anyway, diabetics are more prone to having fungus and candida because they have a lot of sugar in their body, so it does feed it.
Even the pre-diabetics.
Even the
people
pre-diabetics
aren't quite there yet.
Even tend to have higher fungal. So that's something that the two things that come right to my head right off.
Most likely.
And the best thing to do, Carlos, is go by and see the doctors at Doctors Nutrition there on Callan Road. Great thing about it, consultations are absolutely free and you don't need an appointment. Yeah. They're open from 10 to 5 today. Anyway, I'm going to take a break. We'll be right back with more of your phone calls here at 896-0713, 800-349-0713. It's our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. And welcome back. It's our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open to you. If you have a question, you can call and ask the doctors personally, or you can pass your question along to our producer, and he will pass it along to us. We're talking about heart health and things that you can do to have a healthier heart, stronger heart. One of the things we talked about just a few moments ago, in case you missed it, was the importance of vitamins. Oh, yeah. And a lot of people think that they can just, again, run to them. We talk about this so many times. Run to the big box store and say, oh, look, it's on sale. Look at there. Yeah. Two for the price of one. But the problem is if you've seen all the reports, and it's been online and everything, the amount of these different vitamins that are full of fillers, and a lot of them don't even have
what it says.
What's in there. There was one of them was something, I'm not going to say the name of the name brand, but it was echinacea. They said there was no echinacea in there.
Yeah, some of them they'll test and it'll be just a ground up unknown herb. They don't even know what it is.
Yeah, it
so
goes
you
back
really
to,
don't know what you're taking.
It goes back to the old expression, that you get what you pay for.
Right.
And the thing that we strive to do, because here's what I always tell people. I say, I take this stuff myself, so you can bet I'm going to make sure the best stuff in the world's on that shelf, okay? So if I take it, it's good. I'm not going to take junk. And she and I both
and
take
the products that we carry are pharmaceutical grade.
Right.
And a lot of vitamins too, the dosing makes a difference. Like we just talked about homocysteine.
Right.
A little bitty bit of B12 and folic acid isn't going to phase
No,
it.
it won't
I mean,
touch it.
it's real high. The medical research shows it takes really high doses in order to help it. So dosing makes a difference. And a lot of
really
what you
does.
get out there is very low dosing because it's just made for the mass public. We do have a product that we put together that's specifically to lower homocysteine. It's called Methylcore. And so it is all the things needed to lower homocysteine in one pill instead of taking 5 different things. And so we do use that. And so that's one of the things with supplements in general is you got to see the dosing. I have people that come in and say, oh, well, I found this so much cheaper. Well, okay, that's 10 milligrams. What we have is 100. To equal what I'm going to tell you to take a day, you have to take 50 of them. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know.
Yeah, really.
And is that
Nobody
really
wants to
cheaper?
swallow
Is that
that
really
big pill.
cheaper in the end? No. So you have to get therapeutic dose of things when you're trying to help a problem too.
Yeah, because like you said,
Yeah.
you end up having to take a whole handful of them if you
Yeah.
buy it out of there, and it's like, what's the point?
Well, it winds up, you look at the cost, then you say, well, gee, if I have to take 50 of these things, it's not that not that cheap after
Right.
all.
It's
Right.
not. It's not that it's cheaper. And so a lot of times you have to look what you're getting, and you want to get pharmaceutical grade, which everything that we have is pharmaceutical grade because, like you said, we take it ourselves.
And the thing about it is, when you're taking something like for homocysteine, you want to check that homocysteine, take something for it,
And then recheck it.
recheck it to make sure that, hey, this stuff's actually working.
We want to make, that's why we do so much lab work. I mean, because you know what the problem is, and then you see if it's working. You can't guarantee that there's one thing that's going to work for every single person out there. So that's why we check it again. And then you know if it's working for you.
Probably about 20 years ago, we coined a phrase. Now, if you look on the internet now, it's being used, and I swear we were the first ones to do this back in like '97. And it was evidence-based nutrition because the blood work's the evidence. And you use the nutrition to change it, and then do the repeat blood work, and if it's changed, okay, we've got evidence to prove it. So, and that's what we base everything we do on.
Right.
And so, you get what you pay for, but you want to make sure that, if you don't need that much stuff, then okay, let's don't waste our money on that. Let's go to something else. And there's other things that we like to look at. When you look at the heart, and we've talked about the NMR, which looks at your cholesterol, about the particles and the size and all that stuff. Very important. It's not just about total cholesterol. And when you look at that, and we talked about the homocysteine, but then there's other factors that we look at, like a C-reactive protein, which is about inflammation in the cardiovascular system, and there's ways to lower that.
Dusty has got a question from D'Iberville. Ask, is niacin good for your heart, or is there an alternative?
Well, it's one of the things that's actually,
I take it.
It definitely helps with a few things. We talked about those particles last week. And if you have really small particles, niacin does help make the particles larger. So that's one thing that we use niacin for. Niacin also can lower cholesterol. So now you don't want to go out and just overdo niacin because it can actually be hurt on the liver if you get too high of a dose. So we have to monitor that as someone's taking niacin.
Right.
But niacin, yes, can be good for the heart and can change some of those parameters. Now, is there another alternative? Well, we also use something called Wlox, which also lowers the cholesterol, and it does help the particles also. So, I mean, a lot of people, we use them together.
Right.
So we use the niacin and the Wlox together for...
Right. When you look at that lab work, like for instance, Dusty, if we looked at your NMR, we could tell you whether niacin's a choice for you, or you might be better off taking something totally different to help change the other parameters in that NMR. Or maybe, for instance, your C-reactive protein, that inflammatory marker we just talked about, maybe it's high. Okay, we need to do something else because niacin won't touch it.
Niacin won't help the inflammation. So you have to look and see what kind of problems you're having.
Right.
A lot of times, if someone's cholesterol is normal, but their particles are small, we'll use niacin.
Niacin's good for that.
Now, if the cholesterol is sky high, niacin may bring it down some, but it might not be enough, so we might add the Wlox to it. So it really depends on the person. But I do think we use niacin. One of the downsides to niacin is the flush. And
if you've ever had it,
if you've ever taken niacin, you may have that. We do have
it's about
one
the color of his shirt
that
when it
is
goes
a
off on you.
no flush niacin. But honestly, if you get a true niacin, even when they're sustained release and not supposed to flush, sometimes they still release. I don't know if you ever get the flush from it, but he does.
Oh, from taking it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I get the flush when I don't take it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I
blood pressure problem.
That's blood pressure.
Because it's a vasodilator as well.
It's a vasodilator, so it actually lowers blood pressure.
Yeah, we were
some
kind of
too.
talking about this before the.
Yeah.
Because I had last week. It was like on Friday. A couple of days last week, I was feeling this flush thing. It's like, okay, something's wrong. Then I got to look and I said, there's something missing in my daily dose of supplements, and I was out of niacin. And I thought,
There you go.
and I didn't discover it until over the weekend. It's like, okay, well, I'll have to wait till Monday and go get some more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Because that's one
niacin
of
is
the things
very
that I've been on.
inexpensive. Is one of the
Yeah,
good
it
things
really
about
is.
Not
niacin
very
too. It's
expensive,
not very
right.
expensive. So even a really good sustained release niacin, a pharmaceutical grade, is not expensive. So that's the good thing about niacin. But the C-reactive protein that he was
Oh.
talking about before, we didn't really get into that much.
Yeah, but you know that there's two C-reactive proteins. One that we'll just use to see, you know, do you have inflammation like
The whole
arthritis or
body,
something?
yeah.
The other one is what they call a high sensitivity C-reactive protein or a cardiac specific C-reactive protein. And it gives you more of an idea about what's going on in that cardiovascular system. And you want it to be very low.
Yes.
And there's things, you know, that you'll do for that, like, you know, for instance, the omega-3 fish oils are really good for
Right.
that. The bromelain, which, Jim, I think you're
yeah.
taking.
Well,
okay.
both,
Well, yeah.
me and Kim take that.
Yeah.
And
okay,
bromelain is just
bromelain's
a good
really good for that.
anti-inflammatory. It's an enzyme from pineapple. And then we do use nattokinase, which is an enzyme that does help with
It's got the proteolytic or ability to break down some of those proteins.
kind
that
of
we
like the
talked about.
Beluki we mentioned from
Right.
the earthworms, but it's not quite as strong as Beluki,
Right.
but it's less expensive than Beluki because Beluki is very expensive.
Now, what is the
ones from
natto
earthworms.
advantage that I take?
That's
That's
natto.
that's
Natto,
natto.
okay,
So
same
you
thing.
do take that, but you have all the cardiac risk.
Yes, I do.
If you look, you do have all the cardiac risk, and you have had events in the past. And so stroke and heart attack both is considered cardiovascular.
Right.
Right. Yeah, because I had
Yeah.
a TIA
Right.
back in 2002, 2003, somewhere in
Right.
there.
So when we did your initial workup, we realized that you had a lot of cardiac risk. That's why you're in all the stuff that we're talking about today.
There you go. Okay. Lee from Gulfport wants to know, do you recommend a multivitamin for your heart?
Yeah, well, I mean, sure. Well, we recommend a multivitamin just as a base for good health.
just- yeah, good
and,
health.
And there's some that are more specific to having higher doses of that methylated B12 and methylated folate and so on. So yeah, that we've got some very specific ones.
We
more
even
for
have,
that.
we've mentioned the K2 before, and
Yeah.
K2 is very good for the plaque in the heart, and we even have, there's hardly any multis out there with K2 in it, but we have developed one called Megabytes Lean, and it does have your K2, and it
Right.
does give you the 2000 vitamin D, and that's another thing we were going to talk about today is vitamin D is very essential for heart health.
Okay.
And so B12 is essential for heart health, and the methylated folate, and most multis have regular folic acid to where you really need the methylated form for the heart, which is our Megabytes Lean have the methylated form. So we
Yeah.
kind of put it together in the right forms for heart health and overall health.
All right. And Lee, what you need to do just basically is stop by the office
Yep.
and
There you go.
pick up a multivitamin from them.
Yep.
Well, and just tell us, and we'll pick out the right one for you.
There
We'll
you
help
go.
Yeah.
896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open to you. We have our last segment coming up in just a moment. And this week's special here on Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. And welcome back to our final segment this morning of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Drs. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition on Cowan Road in Gulfport. We'll have our daily special, our weekly special in just a moment. Right now, Becky from Gulfport is on the phone with a question for the doctors. Good morning, Becky. What's your question?
No, it's not a question. I just would like to tell them that my doctor. Okay, I just want to tell you that a baby in my church was born with a hole in its heart.
Mm-hmm.
That are they born with a hole in the heart when they're born, or?
Well, no, normally during, when the baby's a fetus, before birth, there is a hole in the heart. And, and that hole lets blood flow through from mom through the baby. Now, right before birth, that hole closes up in most cases. Occasionally, you will find one that's born that way, and they have to go in and surgically fix it.
Yeah, it does have to be surgically fixed.
Yeah. It's a rare thing that happens, but it does happen. I don't remember the statistics on it, but it is fairly rare. But prior to birth, even when in the fetal state, that hole's there so that blood can flow through the whole heart, and both chambers and all the various vessels. And that's coming from mother. Okay. Baby will probably be fine once they fix that.
Yeah, they usually,
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays it's gotten to where it's pretty routine that they do fix those. I've even talked to people, they find it later, a little bit later on.
Sometimes
and it's
they find
still,
it, yeah.
And so they usually can fix it pretty good and have no problems later on.
I mean, technology has come so far ahead that now, now they're going in and they can go in and operate while they're still in the mother's womb.
Yeah.
In some cases, they're doing that.
Yeah.
In some things, like I said, if they usually they wait if they can, but if it's something that's going to affect the baby as soon as it's born, they usually will.
Sure
Yeah.
will.
So, what's this week's special?
Okay.
Well, this week's
There's
special.
two.
Yeah, well, we've got two. One is called ribofuel, which is a combination of various things. Ribose, it's a type of sugar, okay, but our body depends on it. Because if you think about RNA, or ribonucleic acid, there you go, ribofuel. And it's got CoQ10 and things in it. It's just to help that heart muscle
It has your
pump.
carnitine,
Yeah.
so it actually helps with muscles working properly, and your heart is a muscle.
It's a big muscle. Yeah.
So that's a really good one for heart energy to the cells in the heart.
And then we have the methylcore, which is the product that we talked about, lowering homocysteine. And both those are on sale this week. So, you can keep your heart healthy and save some money too.
Of course, one of the more important things that we always stress is the importance of getting proper blood work done. They do have
Yes.
different blood panels that you can get done, but to get one overall and find out, is there
Yeah.
some of these things that I need to take for that?
We do have the expanded cardiac panel, and
Right.
one of the things, a lot of the things on that panel affect the heart, even if it's not known, like thyroid problems. Thyroid problems affect the heart. Adrenal problems affect the heart. Vitamin D deficiency affects the heart. B12 deficiency affects the heart. So it checks all that. So it doesn't, and then in addition, we have the one that does the NMR, which is the particles. It does the homocysteine, the C-reactive protein, and another very important nutrient for the heart is magnesium.
Right.
And so magnesium is one that is very important. He was just talking about how it was important for the heart to relax, and it is.
Yeah, we talked about the calcium in that molecule N106 and how it helps the calcium contract the heart muscle, but then you got to have that magnesium to relax it. Because anytime we contract a muscle, it takes calcium. To relax it, it takes magnesium. So magnesium is very
And
important.
magnesium does affect the blood pressure as well.
All right, Dave from Gaucher asks, I recently had a stent implanted. What do I need to look out for? Any potential risks?
The big thing is you
Yeah.
need to have some of these tests we've talked about.
Yeah.
You need to have the homocysteine checked, because if your homocysteine is elevated, lowering it can decrease the likelihood of that stent getting blocked again.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that can happen with a stent is it can, what they call restenose.
Right.
And so you want to get some of these factors checked and do everything you can for prevention. Even though you have a stent now, you know you have the problem that can actually make a blockage. So you
And
need to
that's
get to
right.
the root of the problem and not just lower the cholesterol.
Right, that's the thing. Look at that as kind of a
Warning
wake-up call.
sign, yeah.
Warning sign, yeah, a warning sign, wake-up call. And so, okay, that now that I've got this problem, then, okay, I need to be doing a lot of things differently. There'll be a lot of dietary changes, and, we can help you there. There are some things you're going to want to do dietarily. But looking at how that cholesterol is, I'm sure they put you on a cholesterol drug, for sure. But you want to look at your particles. Even though your cholesterol
Right.
may be low, you still may have these particle problems. And if you do, okay, there's things you can do
And
for
then
that.
you can add the
Yeah.
niacin like we talked about. So, you do want to still look at all that. Even though you've had a stent and you've had the problem temporarily
Fixed.
fixed, you want to make sure it doesn't happen again, because we're all about prevention. And you always say if you can prevent a problem, it's definitely better than trying to do something
Or
about
the
it
old
later.
saying, an ounce of prevention
Prevention
is
is
worth a pound of cure.
That's
I
true.
think Uncle Ben said that.
That was what Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
But that is absolutely true. So we always tell
definitely.
people, prevent.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of people after heart attacks and stents and things like that, and they are like, oh my gosh, I need to do something different. And that's
Yeah, no
true.
kidding.
They do.
Well, it's a change of a lifestyle.
It is.
It is. It's we've got to think about that. You mentioned lifestyle, because when you look at okay, leading up to this thing of when you had to have a stent and so on put in, okay, you've obviously done some things that caused it to be a problem. So now let's turn around and do some things to cause it not to be a problem.
And one of the huge problems that we're seeing, and something that you do look for, and you may already have the problem, is prediabetes and diabetes. That is one of the biggest risk factors for heart blockages. If you actually have a sugar handling problem or you're insulin resistant,
High insulin levels, things like
high
that.
insulin levels definitely increases your risk for cardiac.
Yeah, sure.
And of
does.
course, as we've mentioned so many times, Mississippi, #1 state
Yeah.
for diabetics.
We're
Yeah.
first in something.
And honestly, it's growing all over the United States. It's even when you look at the healthiest state, which I believe is Colorado.
Yeah.
Their
not that-
incidence is rising. So it's kind of like everywhere is getting worse because of the American diet. So I
Yeah.
think we do need to change our
We've
diets.
become too complacent.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
we-
Anyway, next week, talking about
Fatigue. It's probably
Fatigue.
one of the #1 symptoms we hear. So we're going to talk about all the different problems that can cause fatigue.
Okay, well, join us next week, next Monday morning at 9 o'clock here on WLOX CBS for our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. Doctors will be in at 10 o'clock this morning. Have a great day.